All right, welcome everyone to the Road to One. Today we have a very special guest, Mercedes Bell. Welcome.
Thank you, John, so much for having me this opportunity. I've been thinking about it all week, actually, for quite some time besides this week, but
Yeah.
I'm thankful just to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on to talk about what you're currently working on because that's something that I definitely want to get involved in. Because getting into real estate, you always think, oh, it's all about trying to make a profit. But with what you're doing, I think it's really cool and something that I think a lot of people should get involved in. But let's just start off with who you are and what your avatars are.
Yes, of course. I'm Mercedes Bell, and I'm from the Southern Tiers region of New York. That's the best way to describe it, but essentially it's above this New York City. I am a residential redeveloper. That's one way to say it, property
Mhm.
flipper. I also manage rentals as a home solution specialist. Others may call me a landlord. And by day, I do have a W-2 and I work for a research and development company. And as far as my avatars, I only have one major one listed, and that is the helper, because that is one that initially, once I saw it, spoke to me the most.
I like your the different titles that you have. It makes it less because there's like a stigma around real estate investors. So I like the titles you've given yourself.
Thank you. Yes, that's how I feel. And obviously, I'm beyond an investor. Obviously, I don't just think properties, yes, definitely important, but I want to go to the next level. And I definitely truly care about others that are in my homes. I also invest in them as well. So it's the best way for me to feel better about like saying I'm a real estate investor. It's more to
Right, yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Getting into this world, it's become very clear that there are some people that are just in it for a profit, but then there are others that are doing good too. So awesome. What was your history like, and where were you at in life when you decided to get into real estate?
Yeah, nope. My journey into real estate, during the time, it was more about creating stability and especially during uncertain times. And I know many also experience that. And so the journey started about a few years ago. I was in my parents' living room and we were watching the news about COVID-19 and just the severity of what was happening for the pandemic. And I'm sure, like many, you felt overwhelmed. I was definitely overwhelmed, and I was worried about the health and safety and financial concerns. And so during that time, it was a few years after I had graduated and got a really good job, the one that I'm actually working at now. But I had debt. I had student loan debt. I had car payments. Not a Mercedes though. And I had some credit card debt. And so all of that fear mindset made me realize that I need a stronger financial foundation. And so I started asking myself questions like, okay, how am I going to get out of debt faster? What could I, invest in potentially to build security? And more importantly, how can I just make more money? And so usually when I don't know the answers to questions, I go to Google.
Uh-huh.
I found some very interesting suggestions or options as to how I can make that happen. And they're a little concerning, but the one that did stick out was real estate investing. I knew it just seemed like that was a path forward for me to achieve the goals and provide security. And it wasn't only just for myself; it was also for my family and my community as well. And so after I did my Google search, the next step was YouTube.
Uh-huh.
So I went to YouTube and I would, watch a whole bunch of content, mostly from Bigger Pockets and listening to podcasts and audiobooks, all of that. And then at one point, I was like, okay, I feel confident enough. I've consumed quite enough content to kind of just take action. And so over these past, it's been about 3 years now, almost four. I have been able to get at least one property. After doing that, I was like, okay, I feel accomplished. but it wasn't always a smooth journey. And so
Mhm.
that's when I knew that I had to take to the next level. And so I would attend local meetups and out of state meetups as well. And then eventually would join a paid membership for us, Sub 2.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that just connecting with so many experienced investors, it just taught me, gave me the support and, guidance that I needed. But at the same time, now I was feeling overwhelmed again by all of the different creative strategies and options. So, so
Yeah.
in order to usually, when I get overwhelmed, I have this system or approach, and I call it the Bell approach because it just encapsulates and it helps me kind of just take a moment to make sure that I know myself and, keep my goals clear and also just, because it's not just about myself, helping others as well. And I can explain what the Bell approach is, but it's been able to help me and I know it could help others as well.
Okay. So let's back up for a second. So your first, you said you got your first deal, right? Did you just,
Yes.
how did you find that first deal?
Okay, so my first deal, okay. So when I say the first deal, it's the first creative deals, which we usually focus on. So prior to joining Sub2, I did have a few properties. I bought them traditionally through banks, financing, and they're long-term rentals. And so that I was like, okay, but then when I wanted to do a creative deal, which we will talk about my plans for the property afterwards, it's a fix and flip. And so I did try to go through the hard money lending options, and that
Mhm.
surprisingly, I thought that was going to be slightly easier, but they weren't kidding when they said hard money, at least for my journey. And so
Mhm.
I ended up, the deal was brought to me by an investor who's also my agent. He's a real estate agent.
Mhm.
And he was like, this would be perfect for you. I know what your goals are. And I was like, okay. So during that process, I was trying to, raise capital to make the deal happen. And I literally talked to at least 50, 60 different connections to get to
Mhm.
that point. And which is how I ended up closing on the property through connectors. And
Okay.
they helped me get the private money. So this deal was funded by private money, but also there is a special nonprofit organization that provided me with some more funding, but it wasn't based on my credit. It was based on my character.
Got it. You know what? I just had this. So as you were talking, I just had this like light bulb moment in my head go off because I like to raise capital. And so that's something that we can definitely work on. I was always thinking that for us, we had to get our active income set in place before we could go and get involved with what you're doing. But we'll talk about this offline. But
Yeah,
yeah, very, very cool. So I think one of the things I want to highlight here is that you didn't have the money, you didn't have the funding for it, right? So instead of just saying, throwing your hands up and saying, "Oh, I don't have this deal, can't go through," you went and you talked to 50 to 60 different people to find the private money lender that would help you, I guess, essentially partner with you on this project.
yes, absolutely. So I guess I'll go back. So prior to this, I'm more of a planner. I was like, okay, I was in the group often and I'm always in there. And I'll mention that it did take me a little while to get to this place, but only because I'm always in the groups looking, seeing as how I can, add value. And I was like, okay. And I didn't rush into it because I was just fine, but I just knew once I had my project that we'll discuss later in mind. I was like, okay, I know I can make this happen, but I I did have capital, but it wasn't enough to be able to get to the project that I wanted to get to. So I was like, okay, I
Mhm.
got to be creative about this. And so I ended up getting my investor's passport. And because I was like, well, I know I could easily just talk to everybody, and I didn't want to be like, yes, I do all these things. I would want to be like,
Yeah.
I can show you. This is, all verified. So I was like, okay, in order for me to get this down, I got my passport And then after I got my passport, that's when I started reaching out to everyone. I was like, this is, what I'm hoping to accomplish. These are all the things I made sure that my underwriting was taken care of. I made sure that I was pre-approved for, refinance or multiple exit strategies. I did all the like groundwork first and then reached out because I was like, well, in order for me to try to be successful, these are things that others had mentioned in the group that they had trouble with. So I was like, okay, taking all that knowledge, then go about it.
Yeah, so I think one thing that, for whatever reason, the investor passport, I feel like should be more popular than it really is. And for those that don't know, Melissa Palmer, she's in the Sub2 group as well. She has this background check, credit check, and all these things that you go and verify to ensure that whatever comes out of your mouth about what you've been able to accomplish is actually true. And that, I think that goes a long way, one, with just showing what type of person you are, two, with just saying, I want to be transparent and I'm honest about what it is that I'm trying to accomplish or what it is that I've done. And yeah, so I think that's how we connected because you got your passport. Yeah.
Yes, yes, no, it's definitely wonderful and highly recommend. And it's just something
Mhm.
that I just knew which is one of the resources that I did utilize to get to this point. And so obviously I know for myself, during my job, or my W-2, I do have some flexibility to be able to tap into certain spaces, but I was like, okay, well, I know others are out there, I want to help in a way. This is supporting other businesses as well. And also that gives me enough time to be like, okay, if you're, able to help me, everyone wins in this, case scenario. So back to, I guess, the deal and the question. I want to make sure I answer all your questions. So we talked about the passport, and after I got the passport, I reached out to connectors or
Mhm.
those that expressed that they were private money lenders. And so I reached out, shared my ideas, goals, and this is had all the documentation, like I said, to say this is where I'm hoping to accomplish. And because of the state that I'm in, made it a little bit more difficult. And I knew that going in, but I was like, okay, I was determined only because of the larger goal that I have to help others. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to keep going. And then finally, I was able to connect with wonderful connectors, and their processes were also very interesting because it didn't just stop there. Although I did have my passport, I still had to make sure that I, verified everything that I said and that I
Mhm.
was truly credible in my planning. And so there's processes. They made sure that, hey, this happens. How can you, make sure that, that our money lender is paid back? And I was like, okay. And so like I said, before that, I had everything laid out. I had multiple exit strategies and I did all the front work. And then even though I still had, some challenges, which many will have, I didn't,
Mhm.
I didn't let that veer off from what I was hoping to complete and getting to this point.
I mean, it's just proven that with the fact that I mean, you could have used some of your own money, but you decided to go out and that's the biggest thing, right? We always get caught up with things that we don't have in our own immediate bubble that we forget that there's a whole network of other people that, yes, some might not be interested, maybe 90% of them won't be interested, but you just need to find that one person who wants to help and has that same vision and goal that aligns with yours to be able to go and get this done. So yeah, being in New York, I think is challenging. So you got the funding, and then what happened? Like, how did you get the, I guess, the local government to work with you?
I'm sorry, could you read that one more time? How did I
How
get
did the local government or the county or whatever uh ruling entity to work with you?
Oh, okay, yep. So I ended up getting them to work with me after. So are we talking about for my future goal, or are we talking about just after I raised the funding and now I have the property under
Oh
in
yeah,
management?
now if so I thought that the two were the same. Are they not the same?
No, no, so I have private money lenders
Uh,
now that are funding my deals.
mhm.
And the government entity or the nonprofits, they are working with me after this project is completed.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so then I just
Yes.
what was the next step after you got
Okay, yeah,
the
yeah,
private
no,
money?
no, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
okay, so I have the funding, and then obviously after I'm able to get the funding, I am under renovating the property as we speak. And
Hmm.
after, but during that time, and I'm constantly talking to others, I reached out to some of the nonprofit organizations, and I'll share what the plan is. It is to help foster youth in my community. And there are youth that are aging out of the systems that need homes, and they're asking for local landlords, that's how they put it, but home solution
Uh-huh.
specialist to be able to partner with them. And so as soon as I seen that, because I was constantly at my job, I am the lead for our adoption and fostering team. And so I have many connections to different team members that help support the youth, the foster youth. And so once I knew that there was a need for sure, there's always a need for foster homes, but I knew that I was going to take it to the next level. But after this property is completed, there is an opportunity for some of the foster youth to move in, but because it is still under the time, they may actually have property before that. But after I refinance from this property, portion of the proceeds actually will go to their programs to help with some of the needs that the youth currently have now. And there's a list that I would be able to provide, but I just know that there's multiple ways to support not only just the youth, but the community on a larger scale.
Got it. Okay, so you bought a distressed property, you're fixing it up, and then you're going to do a cash out refi
Yes.
to pay back the lenders and use some of those proceeds to help with that organization. And then it's going to be turned into a group home.
Yes.
Okay. So can you explain they get aged out of the system. So what does that mean?
Yep. So once you foster youth reach a certain age, I believe for this program it's 16 to 21, they feel and kind of know that they're not going to be adopted or placed in a home. So they have group homes that allow them to be able to get how do you say it? Skills, um, home skills or life skills, I'm sorry, life
Okay.
skills that
Yeah.
helps them thrive, but in a more I guess, foster homes, not foster home, I'm sorry, foster placement setting. So it's actually the home and they have their independence. So they kind of put them on that pathway that allows them to kind of transition from being in that, foster care area. And now they're going to hopefully in theory thrive as young adults. And they're not like by themselves. They have foster care caseworkers that will be there at any time to help them throughout their journey and even afterwards.
Got it. Okay, so they're basically learning life skills to be able to enter society as a productive adult, right? So, if these foster homes, this group home didn't exist, like where would they go?
So if they didn't exist, they generally find other spaces for them to move, but it's kind of concerning because they usually kind of just get sent off on their own.
Mm.
And that's not the best approach.
Yeah.
And they just kind of just give them a little bit of money, say, hey, this is what you do, and they just send them on their way.
Wow. Good stuff. I mean, especially, okay, so then they go into this group home and then they learn life skills. Um, and then what happens next?
So after they learn the life skills, they, once again, they're not alone. So they just continue to, once they feel comfortable, because sometimes after they do get to a certain point, they may want to just move out of the home, but only when they're comfortable. It's usually up to 21. And so if they let's say they're 20 and they end up in the home for that year, they'll work with them as much as possible to be able to help them. And then from there, they position them to either move out in a different space. Sometimes they leave and go to different states. And but they always have like another contact to come back to.
Man, it's a tough life. I mean, growing up with parents, it's don't understand. We don't always realize how like good we have it, and then you hear about these things. And uh, how are are there any different ways that people can get involved to help these individuals?
Yes, I am so glad that you said that. And
Uh,
so I didn't go too much in depth, but when I talked about the Bell approach, and that's
mhm,
the each letter stands for something. So B is begin, E is elevate, L is to lead, and then the other L is to lift. And so in those cases, this is what I've been doing even because I also am working towards becoming a mentor. And
mhm,
there's which is another way that you anyone could help foster youth is you do have to go under I believe they do have CASA advocates, court appointed special advocates. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. And so they pretty much meet with foster youth, and it's usually to a certain period of time, and pretty much just listen to them and develop relationships and make sure that their voice is being heard. And so even though they may be, have foster families and they're working with them, just having another person to listen to them and try to help them thrive is always important. So I could send that. But back to at least the Bell approach is that once you begin, you kind of like have to take like a quick assessment. So for myself, I wanted to become a foster parent. And during my, where I was at in my journey when I actually went to take the course, it actually wasn't the best option at that time. And I just had to recognize that. And so I knew that I still wanted to help. And so I had to get like clarity as to how I can go. And so I would ask numerous questions. But that is something important that, you kind of just have to kind of reflect. And so I advise like anybody else too, that if, they want to help foster youth, that, there's multiple ways. Like I said, you can be a court appointed special advocate. You can volunteer to help maybe clean up or like tidy up different housing spaces that they may already be in. So like foster care agencies, they sometimes need that. You can, if they allow you to volunteer to do activities with youth. I know there's a nonprofit not too far away from me, and they're hosting a Thanksgiving celebration. And so they're going to bring all the youths, have arts and crafts, and then they also have a Christmas event. You can donate backpacks. Every year we donate backpacks because sometimes when foster youth are removed from unsafe situations or environments, they're given a garbage bag to put their belongings in. And that is just not ideal because now you're just it's kind of like thinking like, oh, yes, we're going to take you out, but now everything that you own is pretty much not worthy because it's in a trash bag. And
right.
that's not what we want to represent. You want to give them a little bit more comfort, even because now they're going under a traumatic experience. So
Yeah.
that's another way. So there's multiple options, and I can definitely give you the list because I have a long, and it's constantly, they're sharing multiple ways that we can be involved.
Yeah, so definitely, after this, we'll get all the links from you so we can have it in the description.
Yes.
Um, so that who want to get involved can. And just going through all this, it gives me a lot of ideas and ways that we can help. Because my wife and I, we had talked like adoption is a discussion, but I don't know if myself, I don't know if I'm patient enough to go through that because it's like it's tough. Like when you have your own kids, it's one thing, but then to take on another, are you a good enough person to go and go through that? Because it's not an easy thing to just you can't just return something, right? They're a human being.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, that's cool to know that there are other ways to get involved just to help out and not just in a non less committal way. Yeah.
Yes, no, definitely. And that's something that even as a lead for the group that I'm in, that's something that even many of the families have expressed. They're like, okay, we want to help every time we want to help. But
Yeah.
that having that commitment is definitely a big step. And so you definitely, there's multiple ways. And that's what I'm also working with the nonprofits to share and like, encourage the other ways because and there's more development that I just found. So I would love to share with you at a lot of time, but I don't want to take up too much time. But it's a lot of good things. And actually it's gonna make a bigger impact that and in ways that I didn't even think was possible. So we're definitely gonna continue to talk about this and share. I'm gonna share my journey as well.
Okay, cool. So with the group that you're working with, is it just local or is it a nationwide group or what is it?
No, so the group, the initial group that I'm working with at the moment is through my job.
Mhm.
And so we kind of all this is how it actually ended up becoming an interest of mine shortly after the pandemic as well. My supervisor at the time, I remember seeing a post on social media about the needs, the amount of youth in foster care, and it was like alarming. And I was like, I had no idea. And so I had a conversation with my supervisor because it was just one-on-one. And
Mhm.
she, expressed that her daughter was actually adopted through the foster care system. And I was like, we never, talked about that. And she was like, you should come to some of our meetings. And I was like, okay. And I just, loved it. And I was like, okay, I definitely want to support. And then shortly, they were able to, get, newer ventures and opportunities that came to them. So they're like, hey, Mercedes, would you like to become the lead? And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. um,
Mhm.
I was like, I'm always up for, a challenge and it's something I'm passionate about. So I was like, okay. And, they didn't just send me off, of course, they showed me, what they're hoping to accomplish. And it's been great ever since. But from my group, we reach out to we're starting to because we want to support and then go on to a larger range. But we
Mhm.
do have local nonprofit foster agencies that help with the youth. And we're like, okay, we want to learn ways. But then I always take it another step further because I'm like, well, it's great, I'd love to help everyone here, but why can we not help others all around? Because it's a need. And even actually I was just like away in Wisconsin, and I actually saw a sign for needing for foster parents. And I was like, okay, so there's still everywhere you go, there's going to be a need. And I'm hoping to take it beyond that so that we can help because I truly just, for myself, I guess, just explaining how I ended up coming to this, my family has always been known to adopt, so to speak, anyone. So like, if you like come by and you're just like, hey, the first time, you're just a friend, but then after that, you become family. So my family has always been that way. And that's why I think it's definitely important for me to want to help others that come into my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing everything. I want to make sure that so after we get off of this, I'll make sure I have all the links and everything. Um, but for now, how can people reach out to you? How can people work with you?
Yeah, okay. So you can follow me on multiple social media. So my main ones are Facebook and Instagram. And so my Facebook is my first and last name, Mercedes Bell. Hopefully they can see it maybe on the video. And
Mm.
then Instagram is underscore Mercedes Bell, no spaces.
Okay, yeah, I'll make sure to put those in the description as well. Mercedes, thank you so much for coming on and talking about what it is that you're doing. And I mean, you're doing amazing work. Definitely want to get involved in one way or another. So thank you again.
Yes, no, thank you so much. And I truly appreciate this opportunity. You're fantastic. And I'm looking forward to the future where we all continue to help each other.
Thank you.